So I'm going to kick this one off by making what will sound like a kind of strange statement. So here it goes. The day your basketball career changes forever is the day that you realize that you have two different players living inside of you. And like I said, I know that sounds a little bit strange, but I'll tell you first of all how this happened for me, because having this experience and this realization that you have two different players rather than just one living inside of you right now, I've come to believe is a prerequisite to making it to college and professional level basketball. So when this happened for me, it was in, at the time, probably the biggest game of my life. It was in my ninth grade season. I was starting at point guard on our JV team. And I know it's just JV basketball, but to me at the time and to our team, this was a huge game. We had a game in February against our crosstown rivals, and both of us were undefeated at that point in the season. And there was all of this talk on like the city basketball forums and between coaches and at open gym scrimmages where we'd see players from their other team. There was all of this talk about who was going to win this game, and we were both at the time just running through the rest of the league. We were both had really stacked teams full of AAU players, and both of us, when I looked in the newspaper, they were winning by like 20 or 30 every game. We were winning by 20 or 30 every game. And so it was really this clash of the titans that came to be during February of our season. The only difference, though, was that their starting five, I think across the board, with the exception of maybe one player, were 1 year older than our starting five. So they were stronger, they were more developed, they were more experienced, and quite honestly, they were just meaner, nastier, grimier players. They were quicker in every conceivable way. They looked like the favorite to win this game. So going into this game in February, I remember I started preparing for it. I would stay like late after practice to shoot extra shots and picture myself in that game. And I was really working myself up for this game. And so when we went into it, I was super nervous. Okay. I was in warm-ups, and it was one of those moments where your shot feels like, you're made of cement and shooting cinder blocks or something. Like my form was all normally smooth, but it was all hitchy and kind of weird. The ball felt heavy. I was just so nervous for this game. And I will never forget the moment where, understand, like to paint a little picture here, the stands are completely packed with everybody from our school. People had painted themselves blue and white. Our colors were blue and white. And they're banging their feet against the bleachers. And it's a proper scene here in this gym. And all of a sudden, over the speaker system, the song Numb Encore by Jay-Z and Linkin Park came on. And it was like a spiritual experience. If you've ever heard that song, you know what it feels like to hear in warm-ups. And I like left my body. All of a sudden, the nerves were just erased. And I was like, it felt like this lion came out of my system and was like, we are winning this game. And it was the first time I'd ever felt that, though. It was the first time I'd ever felt that level of conviction and intensity and direction in my game. And I went on to somehow have the best game of my life by far, at least at that point in my career. I had 22 points, hit a number of really big shots down the stretch, matching up against probably the best point guard in our league that season, the best defensive point guard in our league that season, and just played really out of my mind, actually. Up until that point in the season, I was averaging 8 or 9 points per game, really hadn't broken through. I was kind of a strong player, but relatively speaking, a role player on our team. I was starting at point guard and, playing well, but definitely not at that level. And so, point being, best game of my life at that point, in the biggest game of my life at that point. And it was this, I should say, we went on to lose that game, unfortunately. I think it went into at least one overtime, I believe 2 though. And I had a number of really big shots down the stretch, and I couldn't really be so upset about losing that game because it was just like the greatest game that I'd ever played. But more than that, it was the day that I realized that there was not just this one limited 8 or 9 points per game player inside of me. There was this much stronger, much more talented, much more aggressive, much more relaxed player inside of me that had kind of been like sleeping below the surface. And I'd always had hints that there was more talent inside of me from all of the workouts and all of the training that I had been putting in over the years. I knew there was more inside of me, but I'd never seen it come out to that degree. And I am willing to bet, if you're watching this video right now and you are a serious player, you know there is more ability inside of you, and there is that second player that's lying in wait, just waiting to come out and waiting for the chains to be ripped off so that you can unleash him on, you know, whatever team is unfortunate enough to stand in your way. And you've probably even seen it come out, even if it's just in a pickup game, or if it's just for a quarter or a half of one game, or maybe it's in the biggest game of your life, like I experienced. You've seen that player come out in little glimpses where your mind goes quiet, the ball starts being swung your way, that your shots start falling, your moves start to feel relaxed and effortless. You're not overthinking anything on the floor. You're just playing with that relaxed, effortless aggression and intensity that you always have when you're at your best. The only problem is it doesn't happen all that often, and it's certainly not predictable and consistent. You kind of get lucky some games and it pops out of you, right? The realization that I pray you have from this video is that not only is that player inside of you, but you can actually bring it out and make that player your default player, right? Not the 8 or 9 points per game average sort of role player, but the player who completely takes over games. You can make that your default state because your skills are actually the same as they are in both games. The only difference is that you're blocking those skills from coming out of you. I really like this analogy of a smartphone versus a flip phone, right? And maybe you don't remember flip phones back in the day. Like my first cell phone was a flip phone, and all it could do, it had these buttons where you would like dial up phone numbers, and that was it. It was a cell phone for calling. There was no apps. There was no, I think maybe there was texting, but that was pretty much it. And now we essentially have these handheld supercomputers as phones. It's sort of like that player number one who is struggling to break through is trying to run these cutting edge advanced apps. All of your moves and all of the skills that you're building up in training are like the apps that you're trying to run on this old outdated operating system, which is your flip phone. And what you need to do is upgrade the operating system to run all of these cutting edge apps. And the operating system is the deep game. It's not the surface game. The surface game is inside of you right now. And yes, continue improving it, but you have it inside of you right now. You need to upgrade the operating system that you're running your surface game on. And so the deep game is that like supercomputer operating system. When you follow the 8 laws of the deep game, you can run all of the most cutting edge apps smoothly, naturally, and effortlessly through so they actually show up in games. You can use that, you know, sharp jump shot and the crossover that you've been working on, and all the full power of your skill set can finally and smoothly come shining through in a predictable way. Okay? So the key take home point is that the player that you see most often in games, the player that feels limited and held back, the player that it might feel like there's this sort of invisible ceiling over your head that you can't quite break through no matter what you do. And sometimes you get lucky and that invisible ceiling just sort of dissolves and disappears. And that second player comes out of you and you're like, wow, where did this come from? And then a moment or an hour or a day later, you're like, where did it go? Why am I not playing that way anymore? All that you need to do is upgrade that operating system and start playing the 8 laws of the deep game each and every time you step on the basketball court. And that's how you make that second player finally come out of you predictably. So go to deepgame.com if you have not already and watch the Deep Game Masterclass. It will give you all 8 laws and techniques for following those 8 laws so that you can be that best, absolute best version of yourself every single time you step on the basketball court. Okay? So I hope, like, more than anything else, even if you never watch the Deep Game Masterclass, which you absolutely should, but even for some crazy reason, if you never watch the masterclass, my hope is that this video is sparks the realization that that player inside of you is truly inside of you. You didn't get lucky. The basketball gods didn't bestow these crazy skills on you for one rare hour during a pickup game last summer and then they're gone. No, those skills are inside of you, and all you need to do is learn how to bring them out, learn how to stop unblocking them, with these old mental patterns that are no longer needed, these old fears and these old worries and these old anxieties, and just allow all of that to unblock so the full force of your talent can finally come shining through. And that's my hope for you. So go to deepgame.com, take the masterclass now, and I hope we see you there.